Hey everyone, and welcome back to our Made for More video series. This will be our third installment of our new series. So far, we've dug into the life of Leah and of Gideon, and then today we're going to talk about Ruth.
Yep.
Ruth is a very short.
It's not very long.
It's like a lot of stuff packed into 4 little chapters.
Yes.
I had a lady one time teach us, and she said it's kind of like a little mini series, like you would see on Netflix or something today. So each chapter is like its own little episode, crushing the whole thing together.
I know I did a study once, and it was, I forget how many weeks. And I was like, it's going to take us that long? But as you said, there's a lot of details once you start to kind of peel back those layers in there. So
Ruth's kind of a little bit more of what I would like to call a bullet point book. So it has like a lot of facts like kind of crammed together. So when you really start diving into it, it tells you a lot more. But the very fact that we have a book in the Bible that is titled Ruth after a Moabitess is like it's a big thing to say the mercy and grace of God that exists to those who will surrender their lives to them.
For anyone, it doesn't matter who it is. I think it sends a large like statement to say, okay, this could be you, right? You could be Ruth if you make that decision to do that. So
well, and it helps us to see that being made for more isn't about being born into necessarily a godly home.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of people, like I wasn't raised in a family that just took us to church and we, looked at the Bible or read the scriptures. I can't ever remember a single scripture being read in my house growing up. Not as like us learning or growing anyway. And, too many people think, well, I don't know that, or it's too late. And Ruth is a prime example that it's not about where you're born. It's about surrendering to what God created you for. And Ruth is that beautiful made for more example.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead, but like
it's so hard with Ruth.
I know. Like right in middle of chapter 1, it says like she was determined.
Yes.
Right. Like, and I spent a while like digging that word apart and the decisions that she made. Right. She was determined to follow that same way of her mother-in-law. So
right. And I love the things that we can glean from her story, just as she gleaned, and it led her into the path God had for her. And if you don't know, Ruth happens chronologically in the scriptures. It's in the time of the judges. So it's before the kings of Israel start taking over or come into play here. So it's around 1100 BC is when they believe that Ruth's story would have taken place, or her testimony.
And I think it's interesting. It's in the middle of Judges, like you read Judges and you're like, okay, that's a lot of dark, a lot of, and you get to Ruth and you're like, okay, there's hope. So I find it interesting that in the middle of that time, you have this story of Ruth too.
I believe that many times that's our own testimony, is that we will go through many seasons and God will offer in the middle of all of that this amazing light to remind you. So in the middle of Judges and the people continually forsaking God, going their own way, he reminds you of his ultimate plan of a kinsman redeemer.
Yes.
He reminds you that he has a redemption plan from the beginning. This wasn't an afterthought. And so in that time of continual rebelling and falling away and begging for mercy and going back and forth with these judges, there's this beautiful life that God says, I have a plan.
For you. Yeah. I think like it's interesting because she's not familiar with God, right? But the things that she saw in Naomi's life were not all good. Like, we don't get the good parts, right?
Right.
We get the like, oh, her husband died, her son died, her second son. Right. So what did Naomi show to her in the midst of those hard times,
Right.
that, okay, God is still there. God is still my hope. God is still my anchor. So I loved that story too. Like, not only is it showing us what she did, but like the people that were surrounding Ruth,
right,
to help this, right?
And we also don't know, Naomi's son, like we don't know how much of a godly influence like that whole relationship was, like through Naomi and through even her marriage before he passed, if that had something to do with her seeing they've come here, but yet they haven't changed. Like they're still true to their God.
Yes.
They're not converting into who our practice is. They stand strong on their God. And what is this about?
Yeah. I think like I got stuck on, in order for Ruth to leave it all behind.
Yes.
Right. She left it all. Everything that was familiar, her country, her family, her little God. Right. Like what was it that she saw?
Right.
That made her like, nope, I'm all in for that.
Yeah.
And are we looking for that in our lives too? Right. Like the things that are pointing us toward God.
Well, and it challenges me on the other side of that. Are we living the life Naomi and them lived?
Right.
That other Ruths would see and say,
I want that.
I want that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it all up. And the intriguing thing is when we talk about this and Ruth makes the ultimate choice. So, for Naomi, she loses kind of everything. And she's just kind of hit this dark spot. So, up to this point, she's lived a life that Ruth wants her God and is willing to go with her. And Naomi's kind of like, I have nothing to offer you. And when Ruth decides to go with her, it's not even just about serving just her God, or leaving her family. She's also at this moment, based on what she knows, is she's giving up a possible chance for another husband. So we know Ruth is young enough because she's like, even if I stayed now,
right,
I can't give you the son to marry.
Yes.
And so she's willing to say, that's okay. I may not have another husband. I might not have a child, but I want your God.
Yes.
There's more to life than just the things this world and my people have promised me. Right.
And I think in verse 14, like she just, it says at the end of that verse, but Ruth clung to her.
Right.
It wasn't, she was like, okay, I'll go along, maybe a little bit. She was like, this is what I want.
Yes.
So she was all in, and she wanted just that hope that Naomi had. And I think it's interesting. We don't see that part of the story here.
Right.
Right. It's missing of, this is how Naomi continued to live in the midst of her loss. But in order for her to be willing to do that, we know she had to see that living out. And
to me, it's intriguing because I think Naomi at this moment lost a little hope. Because when she responds back to her at that same moment in 15, it says, and she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. She's like, at this point, and we know that when she comes into town, she's like, I'm no longer Naomi. I am bitter, Mara.
Mara.
And so I guess to me, what I'm thinking is at this moment, even though Ruth is seeing her at her darkest and saddest moment, she has still seen something before that that says, no, I still won't. Even in your deepest, darkest moment, I still want what you have more than what I've been given.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because Naomi's at a point, she's just like, we find that hard to imagine, but just think at some of your darkest moments when people are like, how do you do this or how do you do that? And we're like, because Jesus.
Yeah.
How do you get through this grief? Jesus. How are you surviving this crisis? Jesus. And even Naomi was at a point where in the moment she couldn't say, my God was what was pulling me through. Ruth knew it was.
Yeah. And just even though she may not have been able to see it, her life still shined that light.
Yes.
Right? Like there was something different just about how she was walking through that darkness. So.
And I also like it if we, start looking into it Naomi comes from Bethlehem.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of brings this full story back to this little town of Bethlehem where redemption starts, right? So when we look at this and we look at, with Naomi, we know that first off, she is not of the children of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
She is a Moabite.
Yep.
And in that, there's some intriguing things for us to look at, because as a Moabite, she's a stranger.
Yep.
Right? And so God had said that basically when they came from Egypt and were going through, he told them they couldn't touch the land in Moab, but they weren't to stay and be a part of it either, because that was given to Lot and to his descendants. But he also said that not a Moabite would enter the kingdom for up to 10 generations because they turned them away and did not offer them kindness. And then we're also going to learn that later on throughout the scriptures that actually they end up going back to being even more pagan than what they are now. They're completely against God. They're serving all kinds of perversions and just worshiping this false god, and they're exalting themselves and their wealth and their belongings. So we know at this point, this is like the very opposite person you're going to see come in to God's lineage or to be accepted.
Yep.
At one point, it came to the place where we learn in Numbers, and this is before Judges took place. It says, "And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal-peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel." So we know that at one point, the children of Israel matched themselves up with Moab and turned against serving God and started serving their false gods. So when you kind of read this, like, from the 10th generation is not going to join, the Moabite women had pulled the Israelite men away into serving these other gods and sexual immorality. And we go, but then there's Ruth.
Yeah.
Ruth didn't try to pull Naomi or the other ones in, but she saw something else that she wanted, and she was drawn to the true God.
Yeah. And it's interesting because she had a sister too, right? Who didn't have that same decision. Like, she initially was going to go, and then when Naomi insisted, she's like, okay, well, I'll just stay.
Yes.
Right? So, but there was something different about Ruth.
Yeah. She was like, oh yeah, you're right. You can't, I want a husband. I want children. It was like she was drawn by the things of this world, but Ruth was like, no, I'm drawn because I want the God that you have.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that makes a big impact in that. So then when we see that Ruth goes with Naomi, right? And she gets back there, and the people, Naomi was well known because when she gets to Bethlehem, which we know was a small town, they welcome her. They were glad to see her return, but this is where we see her despair.
Yes.
Right? And I think in her despair is where you see the most beautiful story start to unfold of Ruth's character.
Yeah.
So Ruth is a stranger in a strange land of people who do not accept her people. But yet she loves Naomi, and she wants to serve the God that she serves, right? So Ruth decides, let me go out and serve you and provide for us.
Like, she could have just stayed and been like, woe is me. But she was like, okay, there's something that can be done, and I can do it. Let me go do that. Right.
And that's the key here. And I like it because it brings out a lot of the Old Testament scriptures. So if we go back to like Numbers 15, 14 to 16, the scripture tells us, says, and if a stranger sojourn with you, or whoever be among you in your generations, and will offer an offering made by fire of a sweet savor unto the Lord as ye do, he shall do. One ordinance shall be both for you of the congregation, and also for the stranger that cometh with you, an ordinance forever in your generations, as ye are. So shall the stranger be before the Lord. He says, so if a stranger comes and they want to live by your law, by my laws, not your law, but they want to serve me and they want to live by our laws, and there's just one law for them. They can become one person. They can even offer an offering. So he's saying, he's making a way for the stranger that says, your God is the God, and that's the God I want to serve. Right?
And I think it's interesting. He makes a way knowing that there would need to be
a way down
Ruth,
the road. Yes.
Right? Like he, as you said, it's not like he, after the fact, oh, well, let's add this in. Like, no,
from the very beginning.
He's laid that out.
I think it's always fascinating to me, especially, with us not being the children of Israel, but we're the Gentiles that have been brought in through Jesus Christ, is that they act so shocked when from the very beginning of time, as he established the laws, he always made a way for the stranger.
Yes.
But part of that way was that you had to obey the law. You had to follow God's command. Yeah. And so he also made a command for what we're getting ready to see Ruth do in Deuteronomy 24 and 19. And God had told his children of Israel, when thou cuttest down thine harvest in thy field, and hast forgot a sheaf in the field, thou shalt not go again to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thine hands. He says, when you go out to harvest and you're pulling it in, anything that falls to the ground, you're not going to go back and you're not going to clean it all up. You're going to leave that for those who are fatherless, those who are the stranger, and those who are widow. Well, what is Ruth?
Yes.
Ruth is all those things. Yep. Naomi, she is a widow. She falls into that category. So we're going to see Ruth decide, I don't know what else to do, and Naomi's going through a hard spot, so I'm going to go out and do what I can do.
Yep. She just didn't sit around. Like she got to work.
She got to work. And, she could have said, look, I'm a stranger here. I'm a widow. I have no prospects for a future or for any more family. I'm just going to sit here and wait. Yeah. But she didn't, because she knew that she had the strength and the ability
to do
that moment to do what Naomi couldn't.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's also like we have to be willing to sometimes put in the work. Right? Like in those tough situations, we have to be willing to put in the work. And I also wonder, like, had Naomi told her about this? Like, hey, you can go out to the fields, that somewhere along the journey.
Yes.
Oh, if we were back home or in their journey back, like, how did she know that?
Right.
That she's like, okay, I remember this. There's a way.
Right.
I'm going to go.
And she made sure that she went and she had asked permission of them.
Yes.
Can I? And I take that because she was a stranger in their land, that she needed to make sure, are you okay? Like, can I go out there and glean in your fields? Can I take up what's left on, what you missed or left down? And in that, what I like, sometimes we are intimidated because we feel like strangers in an odd place. We feel sometimes as the children of God as if we are odd men out.
Like we don't belong.
And we can be uncomfortable. And so because we're uncomfortable, we may not serve or we may not go out into the fields and be willing to pick up what is left. Yeah. Sometimes if we can't have the best of something, we're not going to go glean what's left. And God isn't wanting us to live off scraps, but sometimes he's wanting to go out into the fields so that we can meet with people and share with them about who our God is.
Yes. It's very similar. Like she goes out and shares the same as Naomi had shared.
Right.
As well. Like
she's like, I saw this in your life and now I'm going to live this out the best that I can.
Yep. I think she also she has a willingness of wanting more.
Yes.
Right? Than just like, okay, we're not just going to sit here. I'm going to go out to these fields. You have to want more from like your daily walk with God. You can just accept what's there, or you can go digging and searching for more of that. But you have to make that decision, the same as Ruth did. I mean, I think there's so many kind of overlays of foreshadowing of things of her life that's like, okay, that applies to me. yeah, I could just sit and be comfortable, but I'm going to put myself out there and go do this because God needs me to do the work, needs me to do the work in the field. And that's where I'm also going to get blessed and grown as well. So
that's where he's called us to serve. And in her just obedience and service to Naomi, who she has pledged herself to her people and her God, that when she's just serving, that's when Boaz takes notice of her.
Yes.
He sees her, and it's not about so much just her beauty, but it's that she's out there working hard.
Yeah.
It's that he learns of her story. Boaz hears about what she has done, right?
Yep.
And so in him hearing what she has done, he tells her, I've seen you and I know who you are. And I like his little acknowledgement of her in chapter 2 from 10 to 13. It says, then she fell on her face, and this is Ruth before Boaz, and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou should take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? So at this point, Boaz has told her, don't worry about going somewhere else to find food.
Just come back
here. You come here, and my workers and all, they are going to keep you safe. They'll make sure no one bothers you. So he's given her not only a means to provide, but he's now offered her protection, right? And she's like, why would you do that for me? And I think it's coming full circle of we look at it and go, why would she do that for Naomi? And she couldn't understand why Naomi would want her to go back. And now she's like, okay, now you're showing me this favor. Why would you do this to me? And then Boaz answered and said unto her, it hath fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband. Now thou hast left thy father and thy mother in the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knewest not heretofore. The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. He says clearly she's living, not only she is gleaning, but she's living a life that he is now seeing God in her. Sometimes we might not see God working, but as long as we keep serving, he says that you came into the land you didn't know, and to a people which you didn't know before, and you've worked, you've surrendered your life to God, and you've worked. Sometimes we're going to be working, and it's going to feel like there's nothing. But God is seeing, and God is rewarding. He has something planned for us if we will just stay faithful to the serving.
Yeah, like she was so faithful to Naomi, and that's what caused him to notice her. That, the hard work and
and I like it that he says, your reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. He's saying, I see that you were trusting God to make a way. You didn't come asking for a handout. You didn't come pushing nothing else. You came and you just served. You did the labor and the work, and you're just trusting God. Sometimes we have to just do the labor and the work and just trust God. It might not even be for the purpose we think it's for.
And it can be hard, right? Like working in that field, hard, dirty, hot, like it's going to be hard to do that. I mean, I think about like how hot it's been here lately. I don't know that I would be like serving with a joyful heart, but she did, and he noticed that. I think it's similar. She's having the same characteristics that at some point she probably saw
in Naomi. And she realized, like for Ruth, she is someone who was made for more. She was born into this, but God had created her for this other life and this other purpose. But it was up to her to surrender her life to God and to choose it when he opened the door for her to be part of it.
I think she was diligent about the work that needed to be done. Sometimes we can be diligent or busy about work that doesn't need to be done, right? Like she was, we need to eat. This is what needs to be done. And I think that's a reminder to us, like be focused on the work that God has called you to do, not just the things that keep you busy.
Right. It's not about, like, as we say often, it's not about the checking the boxes. And it's not always about what are we getting out of it. It's sometimes just about, Lord, you've called me, and I'm just going to serve and trust you with it.
And it sometimes doesn't, as you said, it doesn't make sense to us.
Mm-mm.
Like, what is this doing?
Yeah.
But he's working.
And I'm sure because with Ruth being from Moab, they were very sexually promiscuous,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from historically, from scriptures and from, you know, other historical papers and things. So I'm sure when she gets to this place and Naomi then gives her these new instructions. So it's not just we look at it and a lot of times we're like, oh, it's just barley harvest. But no, they went through several different seasons. Of plantings and growth and harvesting. So she's gotten through all these seasons and she's remained faithful through all these seasons. And in that, then, you know, Naomi's like, okay, my daughter, I want you to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she gives her these instructions that I'm sure from her upbringing made no sense.
Right. You want me to go around and pick up the scraps?
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, when she sends her to Boaz tonight, she goes, okay, the big harvest came in. She was like, don't go talk to him. Don't even offer yourself to him. But find out where he's laying and just go lay at his feet.
Just wait.
Uncover his feet and just lay there and wait and just see what he says. And I'm sure, like, to anyone else, it was like, why? I'm going to do what?
Yeah. Like, why don't I just wake him up?
Yeah.
Or go when he's awake.
Or why don't I just go tell him that, you know, hey, I can be yours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, but instead she follows the instructions because she trusts that what Naomi is going to do is going to be faithful and right.
Yeah.
Because of her faithful service.
Yes. Like she hasn't steered her wrong thus far. So why? Okay, even though this doesn't make any sense, I will go. So.
And through the different harvests, God has provided. Mm-hmm. So she's also seeing not only when she chose to serve Naomi's God, was he going to just stay Naomi's God, but now he was her God.
With that, yes.
And so I think that's a big thing. Sometimes we start out serving along someone and we don't even realize what God's using it for. Or we invite someone to serve with us and we don't, I mean, we always want everyone to know Jesus. That's not, I mean, not said that we don't, but sometimes it's not like we're always with ulterior plans. It's just us asking someone to come alongside with us, and along the way they learn about it.
Yeah. Or God will be like, you're like, okay, I'm gonna invite this person along to help me.
Yes.
Along the way, God's like, no. That was for me, and they're gonna do this now.
Yes. They're gonna see this, and they're gonna, you know, and along this journey for many years, God's brought people into my path that I have walked alongside, and then now they're leading their own things. Right. You know, and it's just about trusting God that if I just bring you alongside me, like God's called me to, then they're going to see it. And now she's living it.
Yes.
She's living it and seeing God move in her own life. And then she's about to see that what she thought she was willing to give up, God was already going to restore for her.
I think that's a great point that you just said. Like, she's heard about it from Naomi for years, but now she's seeing his faithfulness in her life. Like, right. Yes. She's seeing the decisions I'm making, and this is where, you know, God is showing up. So she's getting her own experience with God.
And it's one thing, people will see God moving and working in your life, and they'll think that can't happen for me. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they start seeing the ways that God's showing up in their own lives. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. I see this. I get this. And it's very exciting to watch. And I think that here with like Ruth, that Naomi's like super excited. And she's like, okay, you just follow my instructions, because I feel like she's already been led by the Lord, that this is where this is going, that, you know, Boaz is going to be the one who redeems them and brings them back full fold. I think God did not leave her there empty. Yeah. And he used, which is funny because she's a woman who had sons, which in that culture would have been like the bread and butter, you know, and it wasn't through her sons. It was through her daughter-in-law of a different foreign country who now God is going to use to bring her back to life.
I think because of Ruth's faithfulness, it also, it impacts Naomi. Like, she starts to like, she gets a little more. She gets a little excited. She
Yes,
gets her
she
hope
does.
back here.
She's that
So-
whole, okay. Now
Yes.
my daughter, I feel like I can see her being excited.
Yes.
Like we read this and we're like, now when Boaz goes and does this, you're going to do this.
Yes.
But I feel like she was excited in it
She
to be
was.
like, okay, this is. She
Yeah.
started seeing God has not left me.
Yeah. He
is working through this.
And that's where like you come along and you encourage others, right? Like as I read this, I'm like, okay, this is where Ruth kind of poured back into Naomi and was like, oh, well, like, yeah, there's this. And then it's like, oh, okay.
Yes. She starts seeing God moving and unfolding because she didn't send her directly to Boaz's field. This is where God led her.
Yes.
So sometimes when we go out serving, we're going to think we're just randomly somewhere, and it's not. God has divinely put us in that location for a specific reason. And I think also in this, we got to see that sometimes, I have sisters in Christ now that I have sisters that just come along and encourage me in ways that I never thought was possible when things are hard. And sometimes it's when I'm not even expecting it. And sometimes people don't even know I'm going through a hard spot and God just sends someone by my way. But what's intriguing to me is God will also sometimes send someone who's lost.
Yes.
In my path to encourage me.
Like,
and I won't get it at first. But then as I see God moving in their heart and their life through their encouragement to me, and then I'm like, okay, I see you, God.
I see you. You're all right.
All right. I see you, God. Then not only are you sending this person to encourage me, but now you're working in their own life. And then that revives me to be able to get up and go serve some more.
Very similar to like Naomi here. She was like, okay, we're in this together. So
I'm like, okay, I got this. And I don't got this, God does, but I'm seeing what you're doing here. So we get to this place where we know that Boaz ends up, going, and he wasn't the next in line, and he goes and gets all this done quickly because he's like, all right, so this is what's going to happen. This is the direction we're going, and he's willing to redeem it, back to Naomi and to get everyone, for Elimelech's namesake in the town of Bethlehem. And what I like here is not only did Ruth just go from being a poor young widow, stranger, to being a wife of high regard, because Boaz was, of high regard in the town. But God also chose to bless her with children, and not just any children, right? So we know that she now goes into the lineage of David, which then becomes the lineage of Jesus Christ. And so if you remember back to the very first Made for More we did, it starts with Leah. And when she gets to her son, that she decides, I'm just going to praise God now. I'm not having a son to get my husband's approval. When she gets to Judah, she's like, God is enough. And so from Judah comes Phares. And then from Phares, we learn in our little closing out here, beget Hezron, and Hezron beget Ram, and Ram beget Aminadab, and Aminadab beget Nahshon, and Nahshon beget Salmon, and Salmon beget Boaz, and Boaz beget Obed, and Obed beget Jesse, and Jesse beget David. So we go down this list. So we go back from Judah is actually his father. So we go from the one that when Leah realized she was made for more, and God continued this through, and he not only did it through her, but then he brings Ruth into this fold, and it stays in the line of Judah, which then goes to David.
I think it just shows that like God will take people's faithfulness and weave that together through stories where you're like, how is that going to be anything? And he weaves it all together for, the great stories, but for his purpose.
And it helps you to see that God is not such a big God that he's not seeing the little things. The little details matter. Those are sometimes one of the greatest foundations of our life is the hard little details that we have. And she just seen something and wanted this God.
And I think not just the little details, like my final note was like the mundane details of life, right? Like going out and gleaning, that was probably like mundane for her. But God was weaving that together for this ending to this story through that faithfulness.
I think we have to realize it becomes with, sometimes it starts with a simple devotion. And so we have to read Ruth's like famous words because this is repeated 1,000 times. And it says, and Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee or return from following after thee, for whither thou goest, I will go. Where thou lodge, I will lodge. Thy people will be my people, and thy God, my God. Where thou diest, will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part you and me. So it's this whole, sometimes it starts with a declaration. Ruth didn't know the future. Ruth didn't know if she would be accepted when they got to Bethlehem. Ruth didn't know if she would ever have another husband. Ruth didn't know if she would ever have a child. But what Ruth knew in her heart was she wanted Naomi's God to be her God, her people to be her people, and that they were bound. And we have to sometimes, in our being made for more, sometimes we get that lost. And y'all are going to get tired of me saying this, but being made for more isn't about doing the big phenomenal things. People will show up to be seen, to be acknowledged, to the forefront things people like to show up and be a part of. It's the behind the scene things and the daily surrender and service is where God's going to show you who he's made you to be. And he's going to help you to see that you've been made for more than what the world tells you. Ruth gleaning the fields may not have seemed like she was made for more, but God was using that encounter and her faithful daily service
to an end
to change Boaz's heart into her, to see her faithfulness to a God that she was not born to know, but gave her life to. When we will just daily choose sometimes the hard things, the mundane things, that's where God is showing the more. That is where he is moving you to be who he made you to be.
And what he needs you to be.
And that's your purpose.
Yes, your purpose.
We're always looking for these big things. Sometimes it has nothing sometimes to do sometimes with your own family. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the job that you get or how you earn your money. But it has everything to do with your faithfulness to a faithful God.
Absolutely.
And that's where being made for more. And that's why Ruth's story is so beautiful, because she is the very least of it. I mean,
and I think it also, like, her story is, she doesn't do something grand, because sometimes you read and you're like, okay, well, I couldn't do that, right? Like, I couldn't fight off the lions in the den, but God did that, right? But
I'm not going to stand before the Red Sea, probably.
Correct.
And split the waters.
Anybody can step in if they are determined and willing to be faithful and do these small, mundane, just simple tasks that Ruth did. So it's an encouragement of, like, and I had some conversations recently of, like, okay, what is the purpose that God gave you? And sometimes people are like, well, I can't do these big extravagant things. Well, just be like Ruth, right? Just show up in those daily small things, and God will use your faithfulness.
Well, and that goes, Ruth also takes away that whole, you don't know my past. You know, that's one of the other things. Well, I can't serve, or I can't do this, or God wouldn't use me because of my past. Well, according to Deuteronomy 23, no woman from Moabite was going to be used for anything. But because she made this vow and said, nope, I forsake my people. I want you, God. God, you are the only God, and your people are my people. And she gave it all. She was like, I'm surrendering everything I know to you. So you can't argue, well, you don't know where I came from, and I don't have it. Ruth had nothing. She didn't even have a husband. She didn't have a home.
Nope.
She had nothing. and she was of the wrong side of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And God not only chose her,
Mm-hmm.
but he allowed her to then also be in the lineage of Jesus.
And I think
that's like this whole big, she didn't get to see that part. Like,
No.
she didn't see where it led to King David.
Yeah.
She didn't see where it led to this. But God knew the plan from the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. She's like, okay, this is the story.
Yes.
But the story was so much more.
It was so much more than she would ever live to see. And all of our lives can be that story that's so much bigger than what it's meant to be by our daily faithful service to the Lord.
Yes.
She didn't just do this so they could eat. She didn't just do it because she could have just stayed home and ate with her family and served the false gods and did all the things. She did this because she wanted this God, our God, the only God.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's where we have to see that made for more isn't always on the more side.
No.
It's just that God has that purpose for all of us. And it comes that your divine purpose is to bring God glory.
Yep.
This is what brings God glory.
Yes. And everybody's story will be different in that.
That's right.
And how they do that. So, but it's just being determined and being faithful and continuing to just show up to be made for more.
Right. All right. Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us in our third installment of our Made for More video series. I'm super excited as we continue this track. I hope that it is a blessing to you, and we will see you next time.